Welcome to the Battle for Graxia Immortal Spotlight. Today we will be evaluating our newest tournament champion, Undine, the Fury of the Deep.
The sea has no fury greater than me!
Undine is a long-ranged mage who excels at poking immortals from a distance and demolishing targets with her high-burst proficiency. Undine utilizes a combination of skill shots and area effect abilities to manipulate the flow of battle and crush her enemies. Learning Undine will require a strong grasp of positioning, engagement range, and burst damage capability. Undine's first ability is Tidal Surge, a long-ranged skill shot that damages the first enemy target it strikes. This ability is Undine's primary offensive spell for harassing enemies and getting last hits in the laning phase. Tidal Surge has a low mana cost and long range. You should never be afraid to fire off a Tidal Surge just to keep your enemies on their toes. Tidal Surge is Undine's primary harassment tool and should be learned at level 1 and then maxed second by level 14. Undine's second ability is Tide Pool, which creates a volatile pool of water at the targeted location. The Tide Pool slows all enemies inside, and then after a short delay, it erupts in a powerful geyser, doing heavy damage to enemies caught in the blast. Undine can trigger an additional geyser explosion by launching a Tidal Surge into the pool. This combination creates a high burst damage scenario that can take enemies by surprise if they are hit by both geyser blasts. Tide Pool is Undine's largest source of burst damage and should be learned at level 2 and then maxed first by level 10. Undine's third ability is Groundwater. This ability sends a wave of water along the ground, leaving a trail of muck in its wake that immobilizes enemy targets who attempt to cross. If an enemy is hit by the leading projectile of the skill shot, it will deal damage to the target and end the progression of the trail early. Groundwater is Undine's only strong crowd control spell and should be used to block off pathways to her enemies or catch them in a burst damage skill combo. Groundwater can provide the perfect opportunity to line up multiple enemies for Undine's ultimate ability. Learn Groundwater at level 4 and max it last. Undine's ultimate ability is Hydro Pump. This ability has a short charge-up time before unleashing an enormous wave of water in the targeted direction, dealing heavy damage to all enemies caught in its path. Hydro Pump has an enormous range and reasonable width, which allows Undine to influence teamfights from a large distance outside of the actual fight. This is especially useful during the laning phase, where Undine can roam to a side lane and fire her ultimate from outside of Vision Totem range. Hydro Pump is Undine's most powerful ability and should be ranked up at every opportunity it becomes available. Undine's signature ability is Genesis. Undine channels for up to 6 seconds to conjure a massive storm anywhere on the map. The torrential downpour creates a large number of tide pools and tidal surges at random positions within the storm's radius. Genesis has the potential to deal an enormous amount of damage, but requires channeling and will not immediately deal heavy damage to those within the radius. To get the most out of Genesis, Undine needs to position herself out of harm's way to prevent interruption, and her targets need to be corralled within the storm's radius for as much of the channel duration as possible. Undine is a powerful but fragile mage who excels at poking with skill shots before landing high damage burst combos on foes who find themselves caught within her snare. Undine should be used in a solo lane, as she excels in 1 versus 1 fights and lane management, and is extremely dependent on levels. She should not be played in a duo lane because she is very vulnerable early game since she lacks strong, reliable crowd control and has no escape ability. Undine should focus the very early lane phase on harassing her enemy with Tidal Surge pokes so she can try to set up a kill at level 4, 5, or 6 by catching an enemy in Groundwater before unleashing her full skill combo. Once the game transitions into the skirmish and teamfight phase, Undine becomes a true force to be reckoned with. She delivers enormous damage from long range and makes the enemy team pay dearly for attempting to engage on her team. Undine's itemization should focus on spellcaster stats like mana, cooldown reduction, spell power, and defense penetration. Undine can rely on her long range to keep her safe against most team compositions and should only get help if the enemy team has multiple gap-closing characters determined to kill her. Start the game with either the Boots of Learning or Boots of Focus and some health and mana potions, depending on playstyle. Undine's choice of boots will be based on whether she wants to emphasize her burst damage or sustained poke damage. Raw spell power and defense penetration will allow Undine's burst combo to annihilate foes that get caught, but she can easily find herself without mana or cooldowns if she misses just a few abilities. To emphasize burst damage, Undine will want to pick up purely offensive items like Dusty Tome, Mojo's Focus, Initiate's Treasure, and the Wand of Negation. Alternatively, Undine can focus on getting mana and cooldown reduction like Energy Crystal, Novice's Lessons, Ritual Emblem, and Band of Insight to emphasize her ability to poke and whittle down her foes before teamfights. Persistent customization for Undine should focus on improving her usability and offensive power. Focus on red crystals using defense penetration, spell power per level, and defense penetration per level, and augment those with cost reduction yellow artifacts in the prismatic slots. Undine should choose the Chrono Lord, Spellblade, or Occultist's Relic, depending on personal preference. Thanks for watching this Battle for Graxia Immortal Spotlight. You can play now for free at www.battleforgraxia.com.